Yeah, I don't know.
He's on the commission.
Okay. No, the engineers department is scheduled that. There's a whole schedule of who's getting what, but now they're all getting on hold because that we cut the budget, so everything's on hold. But instead of stop anything, that capital budget's been in place for years. So we just need to know what therefore, I mean, not therefore, Augur is going to be on the schedule.
And I was like, well, I have to have this is my tour and we could just chit chat. And I think they want to chit chat.
But you're on the corner.
I'm right on the corner of Wilbur and America.
Yeah.
And I tell Dr. Senior, I said, they did it a lot. Let's not part of it. You guys will really get some tickets because these cars, when I tell you, I'm in my house by there, I can feel it shaking. That's how fast they
And the trucks come rolling and
come
pumping
in the
out.
house.
It's a problem. It's a cutover. It's a cutover from Whitney to Newhall. It's a cutover. And it's a one-way. So we're right last way. No, no, I like, all of it's that. I mean, they put like 400 tables up on Mountain Street. It didn't here. So, I mean, it's bumpy. It's hot. But, I don't know. But you need to get some answers. I have a hard time getting my own answers. We're going to have a public safety meeting on August 30th. I'm going to send out a flyer for that. All right, we're going to, it started with no shooting on Solomon Street. No, on Sunday. The guy drove himself, he drove himself up. So, yeah, we're going to public safety meeting because economic development starts with that. And then we need public works to come and explain how they're going to clean up. So, that's economic development starts with that.
I've been in touch with, right across from my house, I swear they dump over there. They dump their grass.
They dump grass and like construction equipment. They dump mattresses. The whole suburb is dumping. And I've had enough of it.
I have to. And our taxes are too darn high.
And we pay some taxes everybody else.
Right. Exactly.
So, no, I'm going to keep it posted. I'm serious.
Okay.
And I'm about to have a rally in a month. I'm really mad.
All right. Well,
I'm really, really mad.
reach out to me. I'll be right there.
I will. I'll stop by.
Okay.
Stop by your house.
Definitely.
Because I'm going to come visit you guys anyway.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Thank you.
It's so good to see you.
You too.
All right. You still have my number, right?
I think maybe I'm gonna reach out to you on Facebook. Like, I'm gonna check and see if I have it in my phone. If I don't,
And then send me a text so I can make sure I know it's you.
okay.
All right. All right. I'm going to shoot you something around this side here. You heard something that shot on top.
Really?
Yes. That's the second
You know what's going on right now? All people care about is politics. And they want to continue to pass either with each other or
I hope y'all hear me out there. Lauren Garrett's not doing anything. She's a lame duck. And I'll tell her to her face. I'm just tired. These are people doing good money. Good money. She's my baby boy. Oh my God, he's nice.
why doesn't Walter just bring him up and he'll win the debate hands down? Like, look at my baby. Look at my baby. You win.
How you doing? You good? Thank you. You look amazing too, my God. You just had a baby like a month ago? Okay. All right. I can see you. You looking good.
Like sweating, finding it. Blowout looking good.
Blowout's looking nice. Now it's all expensive.
How's all the stress at the house?
How's your butt doing? Summer?
What year is she going to be?
12th grade. Almost over. And my oldest just got married. Oh, all right, hope you're brave.
I'll give you the pens and stuff.
What?
I'll give you the pens and
Oh, I believe this.
to see you. Hey, if you need me, you know, and keep up the fight. You're so done. And we're endorsing you. I was so excited. We had that meeting. Yeah. Holler for me.
You got the little mommy glow. Are you tired? Are you tired? Are you good or no? I didn't think these weeks did. The first couple days when I was getting all of a sudden, I got
No, like the first week was good, and we went to like our doctor's appointment. We're like, yeah, he's sleeping. She's like, say that now. And then it's exactly it. He was like, I'm every hour.
My two boys just got first. My girl was also she's 17. But she, after 3 weeks, she was my boy came boys are more needy.
Yeah, for sure. Like sitting right on top of us.
Swinging in there.
He's all over the place. Now he's like, oh, I gotta be home by my child. Like, okay.
so cute. So cute. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. I made it. We'll see. What's your math?
You got like, I just texted you, like I'm not even there yet.
86 miles an hour, and 86 miles.
I was asking because I know Simone was going to make that there.
Oh, she took her hair out. Oh, no. Talking about no afro. How much that for?
You're about to be here. You're going to be shopping.
I've been hugging everybody. Oh, wait. She's still on duty.
So, yeah. But it's, I mean, now she's at the thing where she's like fun and like, not that she wasn't fun, but like she has her personality trait, so I feel like she's good. She is, but it goes so fast, so.
Like, it's already like size 1 diapers, like.
Well, yeah, so like I don't know, my baby's kind of big. But like my niece, who's a year and a half, is in size 4 and she's about to be. So I'm like, girl, but she's a formula baby, so maybe that's why. Hi, Peter. Yeah. Well, good for you for like showing up. I mean, I'd be like, I'm not leaving now. Hello. So is he sleeping through this? I'd be like, my baby's so good. She can do everything, and then one day.
Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy it. Like, it's kind of nice down now.
Yeah, because you can actually go and
So
well, thanks for meeting you. I can see you.
he's so fucking. He's just so little. He's so little. Yeah, because I was like, they're so awful. They're gonna follow me. Yeah. Hi, Adam. Can I help you? How are you? Yes. Before September 9th. Okay, yeah, let's do it. Okay. So we're looking at you for breakfast and sit down. Your mother is morning. Yeah, let's okay. Okay, yeah, that'd be good. All right. How are you doing? I didn't know it. You're the best.
Hey, how's it going? Whatever.
We're in the back corner over there.
Even with this shirt, Tiffany's like, yeah. Oh, good one. So you're controversial, like, she's my life. Oh, wait,
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Dave.
So did you see the McGrory stuff? Doug McGrory?
Yeah.
McGrory? He's got, I mean, there's serious implications. Of course I am. They were that's why these old people have to get out of it. Wow, that's fair.
I was married. I got nothing to do with none of it. Everything I love for So are we bringing up the rear over here? We're bringing it here. Look how many people got on Oh, look. Yeah. On it.
Actually, like,
I love it. They already know how I do.
I know I talked to you last night.
I was I'm just so tired of people getting go to the go, picking up all of our money. I'm not even a phone call.
he's 5. Thank you so much. And I'm like, thanks. Thank you.
That's my spot. Or that.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. If we can have people's attention, please. I know we're limited seating here. More than welcome. We have some seats that might be coming out as well. We do have some capacity issues with the chairs when it comes to the fire marshal. So be patient with us. We're trying to get some more seats out for everybody, but we enjoy seeing everybody here for this important debate. So again, we appreciate you all for being here. Again, my name is Nancy Dutchick, and I'm the president of the Hampton Regional Chamber of Commerce. This year, the Chamber proudly celebrates 100 years of commitment and dedication to the town of Hampton. We have the pleasure of serving our businesses, our community, and helping our town thrive since 1925. We are excited to continue our long tradition of hosting events like tonight's debate, an important opportunity for our community to hear directly from the candidates on the issues that matter the most. Thank you all for joining us for the Democratic mayoral primary debate. A special thank you to our candidates in attendance. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, your vision, your ideas as we address many important topics facing our town and again, our community. I'd like to recognize Joe McDonough, Chairman of the Chamber's Governmental Affairs Committee, as well as
Hey, Joe.
the members of our Governmental Affairs Committee who's so dedicated, committed, and thoughtful time and effort in developing tonight's questions. Please stand and be recognized for the rest of our committee that is here. Ken Good, Jackie Byrne, Kathy Corey, Ken Sandberg, Dale Krug, and Tracy Rollins. During the debate, index cards will be passed out to the audience members to submit questions to the candidates. We will collect them towards the end, and if time allows, Attorney Ciardello will be able to read them for our candidates. Our next chamber event will be right here in the room, the mayoral debate on Wednesday, October 25th, right here in this same room, around 6:30 as well for our start time. That debate will also be live streamed on the Chamber's Facebook page. So again, tonight on the Hampton Regional Chamber of Commerce Facebook page, it is live streamed. Please note that viewers online, they are able to comment, but we're not taking questions from Facebook Live. The recording will remain on the Chamber site on the page, so it can be viewed anytime after this debate. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator this evening's debate. Stephen Ciardello has been practicing attorney since 1983 and is the founder of the full-service law firm located at 2840 Whitney Avenue in the Mount Carmel section of Hampton. His firm specializes in residential, commercial real estate transactions, business transaction, and litigation. He is also the principal in Eli's Restaurant Group, which operates several restaurants in Hampton, Brantford, and beyond, including the Illicit Brewing Company in Danbury, Fairfield, and Manchester. A big thank you to those who were able to receive a little discount card from Eli's. Attorney Ciardello was able to provide that for our audience members. It has an expiration date at the end of the month, so please go and continue to support and shop local, dine local, and use that wonderful discount card that was presented to us. Steve has been a moderator of our chamber debates for over 26 years with us, and has been a member of our Chamber of Commerce for nearly 40 years. So we appreciate his dedication to us and to the chamber. We greatly appreciate his time, commitment, and dedication to the community and to our organization. Thank you, Steve, and enjoy the debate, everyone.
It's the only thing older in this room than me, and involved the chamber's chamber itself. So it's good to see it. Thank you for getting us ready to go right on time. There's a lot of people here. I hope the room doesn't get too hot for you. I just ask everybody for the courtesy, please, take these out, get them on silent, put them on airplane mode so that no one's phone goes off. So we have to give all of our time and attention to our wonderful candidates. We're expecting a nice, informative, rousing debate. We always do. So with regard to tonight's festivities, we're going to kick them off right now. So good evening, everyone here. Thank you for coming to tonight's Hampton Democratic primary mayoral debate, sponsored by the Hampton Regional Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin, I'd like to go over the format for tonight's debate. We have 5 participants in tonight's debate. They're all eligible to be on the Democratic primary ballot for the September 9th primary. Thank you. We're arranged alphabetically on the dais. That's how these seats were selected. Tonight, each candidate will be given 2 minutes to make an introductory statement to introduce themselves to you. The order of these introductory remarks were just selected with the candidates here randomly. Then we'll begin the question, which will proceed alphabetically down the dais. The first question will be posed to Dominique Baez, and she'll have 2 minutes to respond to the question I ask her. Then alphabetically, each of the other 4 candidates will be given 90 seconds to respond to that question. The second question will be posed to Mr. Peter Sear, who will have 2 minutes to respond, and then again, alphabetically going down the table and then doubling back. Each of the candidates will get a chance to give a 90-second response to that question. We plan to go through all 5 candidates twice. I have 10 questions. Time permits, we'll get through all of them. Following all of their remarks, they're all going to get a chance to make, at the end of their responses, they're all going to get a chance to make some closing remarks. The closing remarks are going to be in the inverse order of who's going to start talking first right now. So, the opening remarks that was determined by the draw this tonight, what we got here, the first statement is going to be made by Mr. Morton. Then Adam Sendroff is going to give his opening. Peter Sear will give his next. Then LaShonda Howard, and then Dominique Baez will give the last of the opening remarks. So, without any further ado, as they say, we're going to have Mr. Morton give his opening statement.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming, and thank you to the Chamber for hosting this evening's debate. My name is Walter Morton, and I'm running to be the next Democratic Mayor of Handon. A bit about myself: I served on the Handon Board of Education for 8 years. I also had the pleasure of working for the town of Handon as the Director of Legislative Affairs, and spent my time up in Hartford and working with our federal delegations trying to bring back things such as bonding or changes to laws that affect how we run the town. I've also been in the United States military for 15 years and served overseas. Recently married and had a beautiful 5-week-old son. My wife and son are both here sitting in the front row with my parents. Very excited to be here and share with you all a little bit about what I see Handon needing over the next 5 to 10 years. We have a lot of fiscal challenges ahead of us, as I'm sure folks are very well aware of things we have to pay for, how that affects the mill rate, how that affects homeowners, business owners, so on and so forth. I've been talking about a long-term strategic plan to help us get out of the mess that we've been put in. And it's going to take some time, it's going to take some effort, but I'm absolutely confident and positive in our collective ability to do that. And so I'll close my opening remarks there and look forward to answering these 10 questions and having a bit of a back and forth. So thank you all.
Thank you. Next opening remark is for Adam Sendroff.
Good evening, everybody. Could everybody hear me okay? Yes. Thank you. Thank you to the Chamber, and thank you, everybody, for coming. I grew up in Handon, grew up a block away on School Street. I now live on Auger Street in southern Handon. I'm married to Susan Martinez Sendroff, who's a teacher here in town. I went to all Handon public schools. I have 2 daughters who both graduated from Handon High. After college, I worked for 22 years for a publicly traded academic publishing company. I was on the Board of Education for over 10 years, elected 3 times, and I was either chair or secretary for half that time. I was the director of the Keith Community Center for 4 years, and it was the experience of working at the Keith Community Center that inspired me to get a public health degree in order to better serve our community. I was at Keith when COVID hit, and I led the transformation of the town's human services into the management mode. And I was also briefly chief of staff during COVID too. I currently work at Handon Public Schools Central Office on expanding the free and reduced price meal program. In a volunteer capacity, I'm one of the founding members of the Handon Food Security Task Force. I am the chair of the Greater New Haven Emergency Food and Shelter Program Board, and I'm on the board of directors for Swords to Plowshares Northeast, which is a gun violence prevention organization. I'm also a recipient of the Handon Heroes Award and the 2022 Handon Chamber Choice Community Advocate of the Year Award. And as mayor, I'll use all my experience in leadership, management, and community building and apply it to all the many challenges that we face. Thank you.
And I know there's an immediate reaction to cheer the candidates, especially when they give a really good response. But I please ask you to hold all your applause to the end. Do a standing ovation if you want at the end, but let's just keep all our applause to the end of the presentations. Next opening remark is for Mr. Peter Sear.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Peter Sear, and I'm running for mayor because Handon can't afford more of the same failed leadership. We need to let a new generation lead, and my campaign represents the next chapter for our town. I've spent my whole life organizing around democratic values and currently work to reduce emissions around our state. We built a platform that we think is reasonable in what Hamden residents are looking for. Our first pillar starts with affordability. Last year, Hamden's population declined. That means higher taxes for everyone. We need to reimagine our zoning laws and encourage development. By mixing our commercial and residential spaces, we can bring businesses back to our town. This starts with the plaza. Right now, I see a 1970s strip mall as the plaza. That design is not suited for today's economy. We could also build and develop the State Street corridor more. That's a great place for young people. It's close to New Haven and close to this train station. The second pillar is keeping Hamden clean. We need to address and undo the legacy of toxic dumping in our town, and that starts with fixing the Newhall foundations. I'm a person who loves the environment, and our parks are some of our best assets in town. We need to make them places people want to spend time in. The last pillar of our platform is safety. I'm committed to building bridges between the community and our first responders, and we need to work to create a more walkable Hamden that's safe for drivers and pedestrians. People take care of places they think are nice and spend more money in those places. We have a whole host of challenges in our town, but we don't have to let them define us. I love Hamden, and I want to work to bring its spirit back. A vote for me is a vote for the next generation and a break from the status quo. Thank you.
Thank you. The next remarks are of Shonda Howard.
Hello, neighbors. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. I am LaShonda D. Howard. I am mom to an almost 6-year-old whose birthday is tomorrow. She's on the front row. Happy birthday to Juju. I am a retiree of the Connecticut Department of Correction, a professor of criminal justice and local government. I am a small business owner. I currently serve as the Democratic Registrar of Voters for our town. I was elected as the first person of color to ever hold this position with over 14,000 community members voting for me. So if you voted in the 2022 election, you probably voted for me and didn't even know it. I earned a Bachelor of Science degree in criminal justice and a Master of Science degree in public policy and administration. Although I'm not born or was I raised in Hamden, as I was raised all over the world because my father was also in the military, I am of this community. I am the Hamden community. I was elected to the Democratic Town Committee. I served as the chair of the Hamden Arts Commission for 3 years. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am a member of the Elm Sig Club. These two organizations are known for creating impact, and that's what I do. I create impact. I love Hamden. I live in Hamden. I chose Hamden. I didn't have to live here. I could have lived anywhere, but I chose this town, and I believe in the potential of this town. My education, background, practical experience has equipped me to assume the position of mayor. Together with the community, we can affect change. I am asking you all to consider voting for row B for the Legislative Council and row C for courage, commitment, community, but most importantly, for change. That's what you'll find in the Howard for Hamden team. Thank you.
Thank you. Next comments, Ms. Pyatt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being out here. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to say thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event. Thank you to my old friend Joe McDonough for always putting this on. This is a great event that's very well attended. Thank you to my family for always being there with me. And thank you to our audience who are coming here after work, I'm sure, very tired and hot. So let's cut to the chase. I'm Dominique Baez, and I am your Legislative Council President. And I am asking to be your mayor. As your endorsed Democratic candidate for mayor, I am on row A with my great slate of folks. But I want to tell you about myself. I've been born and raised in Hamden. I went to Springland and then Bear Path off to Yale, where I studied how American studies, built environment, buildings create community. at Yale University, and I came back to Hamden, right? So that's where I've been raised, and I am with my family. My husband and I own a home next to Southern Connecticut State University in Southern Hamden. I'm gonna tell you that over the past 20 years, I've worked at the same organization. Your council folks, we have day jobs. I work in a small day job where I do construction training. For 20 years, I've been doing workforce development, specifically to train electricians, carpenters, plumbers, construction management, safety managers in the construction industry so they have careers in construction. That kind of background, that day job where I run that organization has transferred over to my skills when I am your councilwoman. I'm a third-term councilwoman. 2 terms, I've been your president. In that time, I've represented the entire town at large. And I'm very proud of the work that my council folks have done. We have created legislation, policy, resolutions. We have done a lot of work together, and I'm proud of the work that we've led. And I need to do that work, continue that work in the mayor's seat. A lot of that legislation we find doesn't always get done where we need to get done. So for us to see those things out in the street, we want to get those things done in the mayor's office. So that's why I'm asking to be your mayor on September 9th. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold on to that mic, because the first question, nomination is for you. What is your vision for Hamden 10 years from now? What are we going to be? Where are we going to be? And what steps are necessary, in your opinion, for us to get there?
We're gonna be doing good, okay? When you talk about our vision for Hamden in the future, I think that's something that we really need to emphasize, the future. I feel like too often in Hamden, we have our leaders really be reactive to the problems that we see in town, right? We are dealing with $1 billion worth of debt, unpaid pension. We are dealing with broken down communities, communication, broken down neighborhoods who don't connect with one another. And there are things that need to be fixed, but when we do that, we really need to be thinking about proactively what we want to look like into the future. I feel very, very strongly about when I create that vision with the town, I create it with the town literally. I want to have communication about what we look like into the future. As your council president, I've been the council president who takes the most public input historically, whether it's in person, online, Facebook, written in. I do those things because I care about accessibility and I care about the way that we make our decisions, we do it together. So when I'm building out the vision for Hamden, whether it's developing our Dixwell corridor, our lower Dixwell corridor, our downtown, our upper Whitney, I do those things with the community in mind. When we have those conversations about what we're supposed to look like into the future, whether it's mixed-use buildings, whether it's mixed-income buildings, whether it's a house that matches the one across the street, so it matches the character of the neighborhoods that we're building in, I need to hear what my neighbors are saying in each of those places. When we move to Hamden, right? When folks move to Hamden, you choose the place you live in Hamden. So we're a beautiful town with a range of different portions. We have our urban, where I'm living down here, my suburban, where my parents have chosen, all the way to rural, when you're up next to the farms. And I'm telling you, when we build, when we grow, when we have a vision for the future, we gotta match that same classic character that we've had in our neighborhoods. And my vision is to speak to my neighbors all the way till it's realized.
Thank you. Mr. Sear, your response, 90-second response to these questions for the rest of the people on the stage.
Thank you. I appreciate this question, and just to reiterate, I think too often we're focused on one budget cycle. These problems that we have in town are large, and it's going to take a long time to fix them. So for me, it starts. I look at Hamden in 10 years. I see the town as more denser, more of a downtown in our plaza area too, and a cleaner Hamden too. So I focus on zoning. We need to undo the history of redlining in town, create more mixed-use development, specifically in the plaza. It's a 1970s strip mall, like I said before. That doesn't work in today's economy. We need to redoing our zoning will allow for more development opportunities, which would be better for businesses. In addition, we have a duty to clean up the history of toxic dumping in our town. So that starts with our foundations. We need to work with the state to make sure that that problem is solved and those families are made whole. But additionally, we need to work with the state as well to talk about the old middle school again, right? That building needs to come down in a safe way. And then we need to have a conversation about what that community wants that spot to become. And lastly, just a more walkable Hampden. You know, we built a lot of our buildings in 1970, right? That wasn't a time when we were into walkability, but right now I think walkability is a key aspect to economic development, and it will drive more businesses coming to town and make our place nicer to live. Thank you.
Ms. Howard, your response next.
Thank you. In order to get to 10 years from now, we have to deal with the present. We currently have a legislative council and chair who has allowed us to go almost a year without a finance director. There is no one watching our money. $15 million mistakes are being made. We don't have an economic director. We have someone acting in that position. So that means there is no one actively going out trying to get revenue into our town so that we're not paying these high taxes. If we want to get to 10 years from now, we need to deal with today. We need a leader, someone that is going to ensure that the benefits and the residents and the resources for our town and our community is happening. But my long-term vision is to see a downtown in Southern Hampden. I want to see businesses on the lower level, affordable housing at the top. I want to see green space. I want to see trees. But in order to get there, we have to deal with what we're dealing with now, which is no finance director, no economic director. We need someone watching our money. We need a mayor that's going to take charge. We need a legislative council chair that is going to take charge and hold people accountable. I run on professionalism, accountability, and transparency. That's what I'm going to bring to the town of Hampden if you elect me as your mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Morton. Thank you. So my vision for Hampden in 10 years, I envision a town that's affordable, that's attractive to families, young families like myself, but also folks from all the different age groups. It's a place where people feel safe and it has a vibrant business community. And I think there's a lot of current potential in Hampden that's been untapped. When I ran 2 years ago, I talked a lot about the need for economic development and modernizing our planning and zoning regulations to create that density, such as further developing the Dixwell Plaza, developing South Dixwell. State Street, I think, is a perfect area for new development, but also allowing housing to go above the plaza, right? One reason why it is so expensive to live in Connecticut, but also in Hampden, is that there's a legitimate shortage of housing options. So we have more options, that helps. But we have to step back, and I have to give Sean credit for talking about the immense fiscal challenges, frankly, that stand in the way of a lot of the good things that people want and deserve, whether it's road paving, whether it's investing in more programming for our schools and our students. We have to first deal with a current budget year that we're in that has a deficit because the fund balance is used to fill a hole. So the next mayor is going to have to deal with that and figure out how to continue to hold the line on taxes despite an immense amount of growth as it's related to decades of fiscal mismanagement and not paying our pensions. So the very first thing we need to do is to look at our finances over the next 2 to 3 years to find out what we have in the fund balance, which is an unknown question. We've taken a lot of money out, or excuse me, it's a question that doesn't have an answer. We've taken a lot of money out, but we don't have an audit and we don't have a finance director. So we have to start with the small things. Thank you.
Last response to this question is for Mr. Sendro.
So my vision for Hampden in 10 years is a fiscally secure municipality, and we're going to do that by growing the grandlands. We're going to enlarge our commercial inventory, and we're going to do that through smart, targeted economic development, and that will reduce the tax burden on residents and make Hampden more affordable for its homeowners. Also in 10 years, well, the middle school buildings will come down and the foundations in Newhall will be repaired, and we'll do that through efficient project management. And Hampden will have the newest state park, Six Lakes Park, in southern Hampden, and we'll do that by working with all the partners involved, the state, Olin, and Save the Sound. And lastly, Hampden will have its own animal shelter, and we will do that through donations and also steady contributions to the capital plan.
Thank you. Next question. First answer goes to Mr. Sierra. What would you do both to retain existing small and large businesses in Hampden and to attract new businesses to come to Hampden?
Yeah, so again, this starts with zoning. We need to reshape how our town is designed, make more walkable places, less of big parking lot spaces. Like we have a big urban heat island in a lot of different spaces in town. That's a lot of developable land that we can make. And with the developer, working with them, we can make these communities walkable so people want to come, take care of them, and spend money in these places. So I think that is how we retain businesses and also bring them in. In addition to that, I think we can consider tax breaks for new businesses coming in. If this is the biggest barrier for businesses, then let's lower a tax break for new businesses coming in. Outside of that, I think it's creating a friendlier environment in town. A lot of people harp on the plaza being unsafe or they don't want to shop there, right? We need to kill that narrative. It's not true, first and foremost. Crime has gone down in town. But I think it's about our design. It's an unwelcoming place. So if we redesign how we think about the town and we redesign how we think about our shopping centers, that is how we retain businesses in town.
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
Thank you. Small businesses, large businesses. I think we need to review and assess our zoning laws. I think we also need to empower our small businesses, but also encourage big businesses to come to Hampden. Right now, I understand that there has been some changes in the zoning laws, but it doesn't matter if we make changes if no one knows about it. So we need to market those changes. We need to go after big businesses. They're not gonna come to us. We're not an ideal location. We're not right next to 95. We're not next to a big highway. So we need an economic director to go after these businesses. Big businesses bring in revenue. Revenue over time will hopefully equal low taxes. That's what we need to do. Thank you.
Mr. Morton.
Thank you. Yes, it's a great question. I think the most important part of economic development is actually the most overlooked, and it's how you retain existing businesses and help them develop further and expand. Because it is very challenging to attract new businesses, and frankly, we're pretty limited in where we have new space. So a part of it is giving greater flexibility to existing businesses through our P&Z regs to allow them to expand, to grow upward, right, to put things on top of existing plazas. I'd probably start with focusing on businesses in South Dixwell, frankly, making sure those businesses are the first to be retained, to meet with the business owners and see what their needs are and how they can be helped. While I think down the road, when we get some of this growth and we can start to make some headway as it relates to our town taxes, I'm a little leery of tax incentives to try to attract a new business, given how hard it's going to be to just get through the current fiscal year. So I don't think the town should really be in the business of giving away much needed tax revenue at this point. There will be a day, I believe, where we can get there and have that conversation. But as far as attracting new businesses, I was really impressed with some of the work the city of New Britain did over a period of years to change their situation, because their fiscal situation is nearly identical to ours. But one small piece in something they did, they caught some flack for initially, but it aged very well. They actually had a town marketing program. They went out and marketed their city to other residents in Connecticut and across the Northeast, and now have a really nice hub for tourism that helps bring in folks who come in on weekends, holidays, they stay at hotels or Airbnbs, visit little shops. So I would market our town or attract new businesses through that marketing program by highlighting what we do well currently. Thank you.
Mr. Sendro.
So we need to create an economic development plan, and it needs to be done in conjunction with the Economic Development Commission, and it needs to have clear goals and accountability and check-ins built in. Retention should be a very important part of that plan. Business retention, a key to that is communication with existing businesses and surveys and hearing about what their issues are and how the town could either help them or connect them with other resources to help them grow and expand. In terms of attracting new businesses, we do need to look at our zoning and how we should reform our zoning. One clue to that is to look at the amount of variances we are giving, or people applying for variances. That could be a clue to what we should do to make things a little bit easier. We should streamline regulations, permitting, things like that, be quick about it as well. And also for new businesses, incentives, and also offering infrastructure help and utilizing state aid when necessary too.
Thank you. Ms. Byers.
Thank you very much. Thank you for asking that question. When we talk about economic development, mayoral appointments are important in economic development. And they are just that. They're mayoral appointments. And I'm going to say it's very important for us to pick a good mayor who's going to pick a good economic development director and an entire building of appointees who are really going to get the job done and not have them quit because of your attitude or how you treat them. It's about welcoming them in and making sure they're part of the solution. When I'm saying that, I say that because economic development is not for one department. Economic development is for the entire town to work on. Every department should be a part of that, whether it's beautification or how well our streets look, or whether or not our public safety is in the good realm or how it is perceived, or our education, stability. They're all a part of how we are going to attract businesses, small and big, to Hampden. We have a means to attract businesses by creating opportunities, by partnering up with our universities that are in town. We have 4 universities in town, and we need to create industry with those. Use them not just for their money as a resource, but their different students who are graduating, their education, their buildings, and their ability. We need to also make sure that when we are attracting those businesses that we're keeping them, and we're keeping them by making sure that they are part of the process of building out new spaces, because when we talk about growing the grand list, it's not about replacing lost value, but creating new value in our town.
Thank you. The next question begins with the answer from Ms. Howard. There are 3 specific areas in Hampden that we want to speak about. Southern Dixwell Avenue, the State Street area, and Whitney Avenue north of the connector. All these areas are in need of development. What types of development do you foresee for each of these 3 sectors?
Well, I mentioned Southern Hampden before. When I decided to run for mayor, in my mayoral speech, I talked about Southern Hampden and how I feel that Southern Hampden needs to be empowered. I talked about how the initial plan was to put a community center for our youth on contaminated land. What I said that I would do with that money is not put a community center on contaminated land, but I would use that money to empower our nonprofits. I would use that money to bring in businesses. I would use that money to assess these locations to see what is needed. I also talked about my goal and vision for Southern Hampden to be our downtown. We currently don't have a downtown in Hampden. You go to New Haven has a downtown. New Britain has a downtown. Most towns have a downtown. We don't have that. I envision that being Southern Hampden, like I stated before, with small businesses on the lower level, affordable housing on the upper level, and I'm being told I have 1 minute. The other parts of the town all can be assessed to determine what is the best businesses for them. We need to reach out to businesses to see how we can attract them and retain them in our communities. It all starts with assessment and communication and collaboration. Thank you.
Mr. Morton, your response to that question.
Yes, so for Southern Hampden, I think it's the old, I still call it the Stop and Shop Plaza that's been vacant and without a grocery store for residents in that neighborhood, which is a problem. I think the plaza is also, that same plaza, is a great place to put some housing. And it's right along the bus route, so you can now start to explore some opportunities and take advantage of some state and federal funding to do what's called transit-oriented development and centering where people live and shop around existing transit areas and try to incentivize people to take mass transit compared to driving cars. As far as Dixwell Avenue, I believe that was targeted more at the plaza, the Hampden Plaza as we all know it, and Hampden Mart. Same thing, I think too much of the plaza is wasted parking space. I'd much rather see those buildings come closer to the street, and I'd like to see more commercial square footage put up. That's the way to generate revenue. and housing above there. And I also think it's a missed opportunity that it's not more accessible for the 4,000 or 5,000 residents who live on Mix Avenue to get down to that plaza to shop and to enjoy kind of an entertainment district. And then as far as Northern Hamden goes, I think there's some opportunities for more housing. I've also heard from a lot of business owners about how expensive it is to develop in Northern Hamden because there's a lack of public sewage. So therefore, when people build a business or they build a home, they have to put in septic tanks. They're costly to put in and costly to maintain. So I think a public-private partnership with the Water Authority to help expand it in a sensible manner, in a reasonable manner. We're not looking to put Amazon hubs in people's backyards by any means, but we can be savvy and intentional about how we do economic development in those three areas. And that's my time.
So in addition to those three areas, I'd also add Sherman Avenue and the Industrial Park as areas ripe for further development. Along Dixwell, I would say I see mixed use. There's a lot of potential there. There might be potential to put together some parcels for bigger things. But we have bus rapid transit coming in from New Haven into Dixwell, so we have a great opportunity for some transit-oriented development there. For State Street, you're a little constrained by the railroad tracks and the Quinnipiac River there, but mixed use is a good application there, and also some light industrial. And in terms of Northern Whitney, I think we should build out the existing infrastructure there and explore ways of looking at bringing up sewers and the water line, but that would need to be done in consultation with the residents and businesses up there.
Thank you. Ms. Byers.
Thank you. So I want to start by saying I live in Southern Hamden. Lower Dixwell is something I see every day, so I see very much where that needs to be improved. That is the corridor coming from New Haven into Hamden, and in that space, so much room for growth. In my time on the council, we've okayed grants to revitalize that corridor, but that needs execution. We have okayed grants to do the demolition of the old middle school, but that needs to see its execution. We have okayed and put $6.4 million into foundations, but we have to see through that execution. I have put dollars into from our CDBG federal grants into facade replacement in Lower Dixwell, but that needs to see its execution. There's so much potential coming in from New Haven to Hamden where we have space to grow, where we see $1 billion less than a mile away, $1 billion in construction, and nothing happening on our side of the line. There's opportunity there to attract new developers, new business that are going to reflect what our community needs. In downtown Hamden, we have an existing downtown Hamden. Nobody knows about it. I went to La Isla. You guys know where La Isla is? It's downtown Hamden. Okay, so when I went there, I said, hey, we gotta revitalize this place and build new buildings and have more folks come in and diversify the kind of things that you see downtown. And so where's downtown? So you're downtown. We need to be able to define that and make it to be very clear. In Upper Whitney, I and the council have already put money from ARPA to do a infrastructure research on the Whitney Avenue sewer system. We agree that there needs to be development up there in Upper Whitney Avenue, but we need execution.
Thank you. Mr. Sear.
So starting with Southern Hamden, first we need to fix the foundations there. That's the first thing we need to do. After that, we can have a conversation about the middle school and what we want that site to become. That is the biggest opportunity there, but it's going to take some time because, like I said, we need to fix the foundations first and then start that conversation after that. And when I think about that area, I think about how we can connect it to Eli Whitney Tech, more advanced manufacturing. That seems like a natural pipeline to me, especially when I think about the modern economy. When it comes to Dixwell Avenue, I've talked a lot about the plaza. It's a 1970s strip mall. It's a big urban heat island, right? That has not worked for today's economy, and it's not working for us right now. We lost $9 million in commercial real estate value last year. So yeah, a lot of people say that's due to COVID, but it's also due to businesses leaving, right? We need to redesign our downtown area because we do not have one. And lastly, Whitney Avenue is another area that we can lean into, specifically near the town hall area. We've had new businesses come into there. We should rezone and make that a little bit more denser. And in addition, I think about Whitney Avenue, I think about Spring Glen as well. We can make accessory dwelling unit permits available to help families live with their older folks. That's an easy way to create revenue for this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question starts with Mr. Morton as the initial response. How will your administration work with Camden law enforcement to build trust between the community and the police? How do you propose to build a sustainable police force for the town?
Good question. So, you know, community policing is an interesting word. Everyone says they want and supportive typically of community policing, but it seems to be different what people mean by that, depending on where you are. I know for myself, something that I was proud of the work that we did in my time on the Board of Education, which was finally getting an MOU between the police department and our school district as it related to our school resource officers, right? I mean, I'm sure we've all seen in the news horror stories as it relates to having police in schools, but we worked really hard to sit down, listen to students, to listen to teachers, also their parents and the community, and come up with a system that works. And I was really proud of that work because we had a young man who was on the board as the student representative. He was a senior, Darius, and he gave a quote to the paper when asked about it because he was very much involved in a liaison for the board back with his school, his peers. And he said, you know, as a black man, this is what I think of community policing when I see this program, how they interact in the school. We had the MOU that set boundaries as far as what they can and can't do, going to before and after school activities, supporting kids who are having some issues, right? I think in society, I think the big opportunity for how we can improve some policing is to have some social workers on staff in the police department. It seems a lot of the calls and things that they deal with are truly social issues, right? And it's not necessarily something to be solved by arresting someone or putting them in handcuffs. So I think part of my work will have to be, again, with dealing with budget constraints and money is tight, but to seeing how we can have a more responsive police force. I think having social workers as part of that who help settle disputes between individuals or even family members can go a long way. And listening to what folks and what that means. I know in the 5th District where I live, there's a lot of folks who'd like to see some police running radar to control speeding and going after the dirt bikes, right, and ATVs that's going on. So it really means different things in different neighborhoods, but I think the important thing is to listen to what those communities need and try to have a little bit of something for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. First response, 90-second response, Mr. Sendroff.
When I worked at the Keith Community Center, I worked on quite a few community policing initiatives, and I'm a big proponent of it. One thing that I'm proud of is that I helped fund autism awareness training for the Hamden Police Department, which was really good professional development. Community policing needs to be community-led. Several years ago, I was at Volano Park for National Night Out at a table where we were giving out surveys about what community policing should look like to those individuals who filled out the survey. I remember being involved in looking at the Camden, New Jersey community policing model, where it's a real guardian mentality and also a big focus on de-escalation. And I was also involved in the creation of the SPCP, Strengthening Police and Community Partnerships. But I believe in prevention, I believe in communication, and in establishing trust.
Thank you. Sir, if you could hand the microphone down to Ms. Baez, it's her response next. Thank you.
Thank you. I really love this question about what we do as a town to fix and create community policing here. Right, we hired a new chief, Chief Reynolds, who came in with the lens to do community policing. We need to take the next step in making sure we execute that plan to do community policing. And my future, when I become your mayor, I'm going to emphasize communicating with the police. How do we create community policing? We make there opportunities for us to speak to police officers and for police officers to speak to us. We have existing infrastructure already in our neighborhood watch groups and our civic associations, but if we got that same infrastructure and have regular meetings with our PD so that they can share statistics with us and we can share with them what we see, then you could create a realm that has community policing. The chief has already created districts. Now we need liaisons from each for each of our neighborhoods with the PD. And on top of it, what else goes with public safety? Fire. We need the fire department to be there as well because we see things out in the street that they need to hear about. And traffic, because traffic is a big part of our public safety here in Hampden. I'm gonna also say that when it comes to social work, the council has put a lot of investment into social work in Hampden. Whether it's the social worker in the library, the social worker in the PD, the Clifford Beers contract we signed on to, $1 million from the ARPA federal grant money to go towards the CAN social workers, and we have Yale Behavioral Science. Those things are all social worker resources here in Hampden, but we must create a network. The administration must execute a network to use those social workers effectively. And I'm the person to execute and excited.
Thank you, Mr. Sear.
So when I think about safety, I think it's important to ground this conversation in the last couple of years and recognize that there's a lot of reasons that trust has been broken between the community and our police force. But the police accountability bill has helped and has come a long way to make strides in our policing. Trust is also a two-way street, and we also should recognize that in Hampden, our police force does feel a little understaffed. So I think we need to build better pipelines from our high school to the academies, right? I think hiring more officers is how we reduce overtime. These are well-paid jobs that you could get right out of high school, right? And so we want Hampden kids in these positions, because if we have Hampden kids in these positions, they'll care more about the community, right? It's also important to recognize that we haven't hired a lot of women in our fire department over the history of Hampden. Women can do this job, and we should be making that path known to them. But lastly, I think we just need to think about how we interact with our officers. People should be saying hello to them, like you should know their names. We need to build that trust back, and it's a two-way street, both from the community and our police officers. So I would like to see them out of their cars more as well, more present in our communities, right? But say hello, say hi back, because they're people too. Thank you.
Ms. Howell.
Thank you. I'm gonna give some pushback on this before I even start talking about the police. We need a mayor that not only plans, but executes and ensures it happens. We've been executing for years. We've been waiting for them to tear down that middle school for years. They've had that money for years.
That's right.
The president of the legislative council and many of the council members did not push to ensure that building got torn down. Am I the only one that's tired of looking at that building?
I am. I'm tired of looking at it.
Not torn down. But anyway, I'm gonna get to law enforcement. I am a 20-year retiree of the Connecticut Department of Correction. I have interacted with probably every police department in the New Haven County. It does start with the community on both ends.
That's right.
Our officers should feel safe going into our communities. We should feel safe in our own communities. That all starts with a conversation. It starts with community members. We have someone running for legislative council right now, Mr. James Baker, retiree of New Haven Fire Department, wants to create plans for our youth. Police department, I'm sorry. Thank you for the correction. He wants to create plans for our youth. He wants our youth to feel safe going up to officers and knowing that if they need help, they can go to an officer. Right now, I'm not sure that our officers feel that way, or that our youth feel that way, or even we feel that way. We also need to empower our police chief. If you're not letting him do his job because you're overseeing him so tightly and micromanaging, we can't get work done. Empower our police. Empower our police chief. Thank you.
Thank you. We could hold applause until the end. That'll allow us to get more questions in. And in that vein, if anyone has a question, if we have enough time, we've had some very spirited discussions. I'm not sure if we're going to have time, but if you have a question you'd like to ask, you have Mr. McDonough, Kathy's over in the corner, just raise your hands. They'll get a card to you, and you can fill out a question. And then if we have time, we're going to ask some questions from the floor. So back to our questioning of our panel. So, Mr. Centroff, this is your 2-minute response. What is your vision for education in town? How should the Hamlin Public School System prepare students to join the workforce?
Thank you. So a strong public school system is really a cornerstone of any future growth for town. It's critical to retain and attract families. One thing I'd be interested in doing is pushing for more something called SRBI, which stands for Scientific Research-Based Intervention. And that is a system when a student starts struggling, a bunch of different tiers of supports kick in to make sure nobody falls behind and they remain at grade level. I also think it's very important to, one of the biggest indicators of student success is parental involvement. So we need to make sure there are ways of parents and guardians and grandparents to have ways to interact with teachers and interact with the schools and participate. In terms of preparing workforce, there's something called career technical education going on. There's the HECA program, which is an engineering program at the high school, which I think could be expanded upon. I know that they're just starting a first responders class or two in conjunction with HPD and HFD and EMTs as well. When I was on the Board of Education, I remember we had a program for students could learn phlebotomy so they could get a job, but it's very important to link learning to careers. Hamden High School is a very comprehensive school. There is definitely a lot of AP classes, there are a lot of college prep classes, but we also need to really prepare students for careers. My daughter got Gateway credit when she took early childhood development classes and worked in the nursery school there. So there's a lot to be done, and I think that should be expanded.
Thank you. First response, Ms. Bias. Sure. What is your vision for education in Hamden? How should the Hamden public school system prepare students to join the workforce?
Thank you very much. So I mentioned this briefly in my introduction, but my expertise is workforce development. I train people in the trades so they can get a job, a career, be able to retire with dignity, have a pension. When I'm talking about education as a part of your journey into getting your job, the school system in Hamden can be doing a better job. We can have vocational training. We can have trades. We can have links and partnerships and internships with real manufacturing here in town. And we can also create those opportunities, that employer-driven training, if we get together with our universities and start to create industry here in Hamden. For both the high schools routing into our local colleges and for our college graduates who are coming into Hamden, and we want them to stay in Hamden. It's not just about them having a job here and us creating space in Hamden with those opportunities, but it's them also creating your families and having your grandkids live here as well. Our Board of Education for a very long time has been strapped for cash. They've been unsure of their future. I want to create a relationship with the Board of Education where they feel very secure about their resources in Hamden, and thus they can grow appropriately in the right direction. We have less and less students going to college and more students who want to leave high school and get right into the job force. We need to give them that access, those resources to do that, and sometimes that's making relationships, sometimes that's partnerships, sometimes that is using the energy and the resources that we do have. Wisdom.
Thank you, Mr. Sear.
So education is very important to me. I'm a K through 12 Hamden Public Schools graduate. My parents are both educators, and I was raised by a family of educators. The biggest question around education that will come up for the next mayor revolves around school renovations. Both Shepherd Glen and Westwoods are in disrepair and need renovations. We have a lot of people up here tonight that have been on the Board of Ed for a long time. It did not repair those buildings, and now they're at a point where we have to have a conversation about maybe closing some of those schools, right? So it's frustrating to me hearing that people support education, but we're not talking about the renovations of those buildings. Outside of the renovations, we do need to preserve pathways. I was able to go to UC Berkeley with 16 credits from a Hamden Public School. That's a Hamden Public School success story, and we need to make sure those pathways stay for kids. In addition, my brother-in-law teaches at New York Public School, and they just banned cell phones. This is an easy thing to do. There's yonder pouches. It's not that expensive. And he says it's a godsend. People pay attention, kids are engaged, and they're actually asking questions again. So those things are very important to me. Thank you.
Ms. Howard.
Hi, I think it all starts with communication between the Board of Education, the mayor, and the parents. As I walked and knocked on hundreds of doors, we talked about youth. And right now, we have what may be considered equality in our education, but not equity. We need equity in our education. So if that means that certain schools may get a little more than the average school, that's what we need to do to create equity. Another thing is we need to get creative of how we're getting parents involved. Parents work different hours. So we need to create ways that every parent can be involved in their children's education if they need to, regardless if they work on third shift, regardless if they work first shift. We need to start having conversations with parents and asking them what they need. We also need to empower our nonprofits. We have nonprofits in Hampden right now that are just begging to help our students, but they don't have funding. We have ARPA money, supposedly $10 million of it. Why can't we empower our youth and our nonprofits with that $10 million? Where is it? Let's ask the Legislative Council, where is that $10 million of ARPA funding to educate our children, empower our nonprofits? It starts with our children. Thank you.
Mr. Morton. Thank you. Yes, as a graduate of Hampden Public Schools and will in several years have a son who's going to Hampden Public Schools, it's definitely taken on. I appreciate the importance of it even more than I did before, and I very much would like to see long-term to improve student outcomes, and the single best thing we can do as a school district is have a conversation about universal pre-K, get our students in the classrooms earlier. However, I do know enough to know that there is a cost to that, and it is something expensive, and I think it's more of a long-term, well, it's a long-term investment, and I think it's a good investment to make. But we first have to get there financially, and I can also admit too that we have a lot of buildings, not just Board of Ed buildings, that have been in disrepair because of how cash-strapped we've been as a municipality. But the Board of Ed doesn't have the ability to actually go forth through bonding. It's the town side. And so the Board of Ed actually did put together a strategic plan to address how to racially balance our schools, how to repair our schools, how to increase student performance, and also avoid a structural deficit. Unfortunately, when Mayor Garrett and Dominique Baez came to power in town, they walked away from the bonding portion after we had millions lined up for the state to do the project, and so it died right then and there. But we did do some good work and do long-term planning in that capacity, in that role. But the town didn't want to go forth with the bonding, and the Board of Ed has no control over that.
Thank you. All right, our second round of questions, we're going to start back with Ms. Baez. Ms. Baez, the mayor sits as an ex officio member of the Board of Education in Hampden, though without a vote. Considering the enormity of the board's budget as a percent to the town's overall budget, how would you create more cooperation and transparency between the board and the mayor's office?
Thank you for that question. I just want to say, firstly, I would tell the truth. I think it's very important when we communicate with one another that we do it respectfully and you say the facts rather than go into a meeting and saying there's existence of a letter that does not exist, so you cannot do that bonding. And I want to say that when we are growing our relationship with the Board of Ed, we also want to make sure that we are being very careful about where we do with our finances. On council, I've spent a lot of time combing through budget lines, line by line, looking for savings, trying to figure out how we can cut the budget as low as possible. That's how we cut $18 million out of this last mayoral proposal. On the Board of Ed, sometimes we don't see that same energy, especially from some of our past finance chairs on the Board of Ed who have skated by with allowing there to be $2 to $3 mil of an ask or joined to our tax bill. But when you're ex officio on the Board of Ed, there is an opportunity to be a part of the conversation. There's an opportunity to make headway with the folks there to make sure when our buildings are being used, they're being used together, that we're inviting the community, that we are using our spaces creatively to not just be a village for our children, but have our community members, our elders, our folks who are neighboring our buildings also come in, be there for community events, be there to teach folks, open our buildings up as both community centers as well as spaces of education. This way we're saving a buck on making a new building. Instead, we're creating community in our buildings that already exist. And we are also joining together some of our services and our relationships together in that motion. I find that when I'm looking through the budget in Hampton, when I'm looking through our services, we have duplicative services, whether it's in the finance department or software. We have an opportunity to save, and we have that opportunity to be there by working together, not accusing people of things.
Thank you. Mr. Sear, your response.
So as an ex officio member, I think that title is, it centers around communication, right? So it's about showing up and explaining the budget challenges, showing up and explaining some of the things that townspeople are thinking, because not every townsfolk have a member in the school or a student in the school system, and they're members of our community too. So we need to combat some narratives. I know this year was especially challenging. We had more special ed kids come to our school, which means higher transportation costs. So it's about explaining those things and not thinking that the Board of Education is some kind of slush fund, right? I think I hear that narrative a lot, our test scores are going down, but we are so much more than a test score. Like we have a big population that we service, but I see amazing kids come out of Hampton every single day, and I've known them for years since I graduated from high school, right? So I think it starts with explaining things. It starts with recognizing that we do have challenges, that it's, my commitment is to keep Board of Ed increases in line with inflation, but some years change. It's not the same every single year, and some years are exceptional. Like this year we had, I think it was 10 additional special ed kids that came onto our budget, right? So people need to know those things, and it helps if the mayor shows up and explains them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
Thank you. What I heard was be truthful. I think we need to be truthful to our community. We went almost a year without an audit. We don't even know how much money we have in our current budget. So we're gonna talk about being truthful. Let's be truthful to the community about what is going on in our town regarding our funding. As far as sitting ex officio on the Board of Ed, I agree with what has been said. You have to be present. You may not have a vote, but you have a voice. And if you establish that communication, we can get things done. It all starts with a conversation. Another thing I'd like to bring up is when the superintendent of schools came before the legislative council, he's talked about how he was splitting his time between being a grant writer and being a superintendent. So one of the things I would do immediately when it comes to the Board of Ed is they need to hire a grant writer. A grant writer pays for itself. Let's start with that, but it all starts with communication and being present, like what was stated before. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morton.
Thank you. Yes, the most frustrating thing for me in my 8 years on the Board of Education was going to the leadership meetings in town, which would be a combination of who was on council, who's in the mayor's office, and who's on the Board of Ed. And why I think we continue to just change faces and names and positions, but taxes continue to go up and our debt just gets worse, is because we haven't sat down as a town and figured out what we want to be in a decade, what our priorities are, and how we get there. So the Board of Ed would show up with an ask to try to do some before and after school stuff, or to try to do a plan that fixes student performance and our capital plan, but then we don't get the support from the Legislative Council or the Mayor's office. Every single time we sent a budget over to the town side, we already knew what number we were going to get from the Mayor and the Legislative Council. And it was constant pressure to try to not have an increase, but we try to respond to our students and their needs and grow the budget a little bit to do the bare minimum, but to get lectured by the other half of town and told, no, you're going to be happy with getting flat funded or less than you need, but then watch them blow money on various pet projects on the other side. I'm sick and tired of it, because that's why I ran for mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Sadrov.
So as mayor, I would use the ex officio seat on the Board of Education to hear public comment when there's something going on of interest, and also to weigh in on important issues. But communication is really key between the mayor's office and the Legislative Council, with the Board of Education, but not just the non-elected members of the Board of Education, but also the school administration, the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the COO. And I think that the mayor and the superintendent and their finance director should meet on a regular basis and compare notes constantly. And one thing I would do as mayor, there are department head meetings. I don't think the superintendent is usually invited to those, but the school system's the biggest town department, and I think the finance director for the school system and the superintendent should be invited to those meetings.
Thank you. Pass the microphone down to Mr. Sear, please, because the next question goes to him. Thank you. Hamden has a shortage in housing that is affordable to working people. What is your long-term plan to address this need and to provide needed housing for all of Hamden's residents?
Yeah, so I think the shortage of housing comes from years of opposition to development for a lot of reasons, but we also have to recognize that we have a history of redlining in this town and that there is very much a northern and southern Hamden. I think when I think about new development, I think the golden standard nowadays is 80-20, so it's 80% market rate, 20% affordable. That's what I shoot for every new development in our town. Doesn't matter where in our town, that's what we should be shooting for, right? We shouldn't change it for different neighborhoods. I don't believe in that. I think it's about densification in a lot of different areas and better land use. And densifying the downtown is crucial to growth. So the plaza, we need to have mixed use zoning in the plaza, housing on top, nightlife on the bottom, draw young people to town. Outside of the plaza, it's about the State Street corridor as well. That seems like a great opportunity for me. That's where young people would like to live. It's close to the train station and also close to New Haven nightlife. In addition, in Spring Glen, in areas like Spring Glen and Westwoods, we can have ADUs, accessory dwelling units. This is an easy way to bring in new revenue for the town. It's essentially making your garage into a bedroom for maybe your son that's gonna come in and take care of you, or your elderly family member who wants to move in. These things all make sense to me, but we need to have this conversation with homeowners, because a lot of homeowners are opposed to development, but they don't know what it's like in the housing market for a young person nowadays, right? When I go to try to buy a house nowadays, there's 3 people with briefcases from a hedge fund lined up right in front of me. You gotta get them to take a chance on you. It's different than when a lot of people in Hamden bought their first home, right? So I think homeowners need to recognize that as well. But if we don't grow as a town, taxes aren't gonna get lowered, right? So we can't oppose every new development in town. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Howard, your response.
I'd like to go back to the department head part. I'm a department head in the town of Hamden as a registrar of voters. I've only been to 1 meeting in 3 years because I wasn't invited. Everybody should have a seat at the table. Back to zoning. So when everyone has this not in my backyard mentality, right? We need to assess the zoning regulations in order to create and build more housing. I also agree with what was said regarding mixed use. It should be businesses or nightclubs, as Mr. said, on the bottom, but affordable housing at the top. But it all starts with zoning. We need to assess those zoning regulations in every community, from the 1st to the 9th district and everywhere in between. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morton.
Yes, housing crisis, I think, is one of the most important things facing, I think, my generation, frankly, in the state. But as far as where it starts, I mean, for starters, I was very disappointed that Governor Lamont vetoed the housing. There was a lot of great work by a lot of people, especially people from this community, to support on a statewide level reforms that would make it easier to build the housing that's literally pushing people out into the streets. 40% of people in this country who live on the streets have full-time jobs. It's insane how affordable it's become to just have a one-bedroom, right? I forget anything lavish or McMansion. So I think it's there's a needed level of state advocacy, frankly, as it relates to housing. In addition to that, the town needs to do its part, as everybody seems to be in agreement on. Our planning and zoning regulations really are the single biggest impediment to the type of growth we need in this town. The planning and zoning regulations are the blueprint and lay out how the town is to be constructed. how many parking spaces you need, how far back from the road you have to be if you're a commercial business, how large your sign can be, and whether or not it can be on at night, right? So we need to do a top to bottom review of that, but then we also need to execute and do something that we've never done in this town. Have an economic development director that has staff and resources to do economic development. You can't just talk about it, you have to actually live it. We don't have a permanent economic development director, and they have no money to do anything. So we have a person sitting in a seat. That's not economic development, and we're long overdue for actually resourcing and investing in an office that will generate revenue and growth for this town.
Thank you. Mr. Sandro.
So in terms of affordable housing for working people, I think a key part to any plan is rehabbing existing housing. We have aging housing stock in this town, and we should invest in it and keep it viable for decades to come. I worked in housing rehab projects when I was at the Keefe Community Center. Another thing I want to look at is blight. I know of houses that have been unoccupied for years in disrepair. I would like to look into creating an interdisciplinary task force within town along the lines of New Haven's Livable City Initiative, and try to communicate and nudge these homeowners to either fix up their property and start housing people, or else encourage them to sell it to somebody who will. And we do need more affordable housing for working people in town, and we need to get up to the 10% affordable benchmark, because if we don't, we are susceptible to something, a state statute called 8BG, where developers could come in and put in housing and sidestep a lot of our zoning regulations. So it needs to be done on our own, so we could get to the 10% and we'll have more control over it, and it should be appropriate to neighborhoods and done in consultation with residents.
Thank you. Ms. Pius.
Thank you very much. Affordable housing as an issue is close to my heart. I believe that we have to invite affordable housing and growth in housing very carefully. We don't need only rent and big box apartments to help this housing issue, but we also need to create housing that is going to lead to ownership, that is going to bring our young people, our low-income folks, our elderly into the middle class so that they can really make a home out of Hampton. When I was a young girl, I worked with my mother in LCI, right? She worked for that Livable City Initiative at the time, and she built affordable housing. She built quality affordable housing for low-income residents and lotteried those things off so that we can bring people into the middle class. Too often when people think about what our next leg of housing is, we talk about dense housing. But I'm talking about housing that is going to match the character of each neighborhood and be respectful and authentic to each neighborhood in Hampton. On top of that, I'm going to say that the council did pass an ADU policy, accessory dwelling unit policy, with the help of our town planner, Eugene Lifshitz. What we need is to be able to communicate to our residents through marketing and meetings and a real conversation face-to-face with people, that that's an option for you to create and change your living space so you can welcome more residents in. Welcome your parents back into Hampton and have a living space for your children. I also want to talk about the housing ordinance that my councilwoman put together that prioritizes land banking so that we don't miss out on assets that the town already has, to create that ownership housing, to create that housing that's low income in places where we need it. And I'm also going to say that we have developers every day who could be building in Hampton, but we need to make those things advertised and welcome and obvious for outsiders too.
Okay. Was that it?
Thank you. Next question, we're going to start with Ms. Howard. A chance, or you all going to get a chance to put on your residential developer hat, not developer, but like the economic developer in town, the residential developer. Here's your question. What would you tell a young family who is considering moving to our town to persuade them to move and invest and build their family here?
That's a very good question. I believe in Hampton's potential, and that is why I live in Hampton. When I moved to Hampton 8 years ago, I was concerned about the taxes then. Never did I imagine that my taxes would go up every year that I lived here, every single year. But despite all of that, I love the beauty of Hampton. I love the diversity of Hampton. I love looking out into the community right now and seeing it. So although we definitely have some things that we need to work on, and it's not gonna be fixed overnight, we gotta start somewhere. So I would ask them to look at the beauty of Hampton, look at our diversity, and buy a house here, and help us create that change.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Mr. Morton, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, that's a very unique question. So what would I tell a young family? Well, I'll tell them why I'm here. I'll tell them what the town's meant to me and how instrumental it's been in my growth and development and the great years I had at Hampton High School, the lifelong friends that I've met, the very cliche neighborhood that I grew up in that looked like the globe, and we played outside until the streetlights came on and we were playing in the woods and stuff like that. And those are my friends who I grew up with, and there's quite a few that still, live here and have those fond memories. I think we've got great people. I think we've got honest, earnest people, frankly, who are just looking for a little bit of help and relief and honesty as it relates to the budget. While we have significant fiscal struggles ahead of us, whoever wins this race in September and they get through November is walking into a budget that has a hole of $20+ million, and we don't know how much money's in the fund balance because we don't have an audit. So we do have tough years ahead of us, right? But I can tell that person, now's a
Thank
good
you.
time. Your money,
You don't know what's in the fund
you got a lot
balance.
of house, but there is something here worth fighting for and worth being here, right? Obviously, by the room being so full, there's still a lot of good people in this town, a lot of good assets, our proximity to New Haven, right? Quinnipiac in the north, we're 2 hours from Boston, an hour and a half to the city. We have to sell our town better and take better of how well positioned we are geographically, because we're not too far off despite these challenges. So I don't mean to be the doom and gloom person by any means. I do want to be honest, but I also have a lot of hope and optimism because I see the potential everywhere, and it's time we just go do it.
Thank you. Ms. Cedros.
So I would tell
people, but it's also the spirit. A lot of the reason I ran is because I feel like the spirit is leaving Hamden, and I'd like to do a lot of work to bring it back because this is a special town and I love it so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, we're starting with Mr. Morton. The current town budget prepared by the Legislative Council includes perhaps as much as a $9 million drawn from the town's general fund and another $7 million of entirely unspecified cuts in spending. Is this a budget that you personally endorse? And what, in your opinion, will be the impact of this budget on future years' mill rates in town?
I've been waiting for this question. So, the council budget that passed took $16 million from the fund balance. It directed the mayor to find another $7 million. And unspecified cuts, I'm not at all optimistic about any person's ability to find $7 million as we're now at least a month into this fiscal year. And additionally, we have not had an audit for 18 months. And that is a problem because we can't tell our residents how much money we actually have. And it's just come out. There were some council emails that the team of people hired to do our audit need to go back to the former team that did the previous audit because the bank statements and the numbers in the audit don't match up. So we could either have a lot of money and we can go across the street and celebrate if we need an answer, or we've got a really tough road ahead, and it's probably the latter. So do I endorse that for fiscal responsibility? I don't. It's not sustainable for anybody, it's not helpful, and it's not honest. And I know there was also a phase-in of the assessment that some folks had a little sigh of relief to see that their taxes weren't going up as much, but the town can still adjust the underlying mill rate regardless of whatever the phase-in is. So, and we have, in our last audit, there was a line in there that said, the town of Hamden's issue is that our town government continues to grow faster than our grandmas. And they were beginning to question both the willingness of elected officials and the ability of our taxpayers to be able to afford those taxes. We have to really look at how we run this town and consider things that we haven't perhaps considered before. We are long overdue for seeing what more is available at the federal and state level to bring back to help offset the cost so residents can get a break. Because I know a lot of people I'm seeing for the first time tonight in this room, but I'm pretty sure you're at about what your limit is to be able to pay taxes, whether you're a homeowner or a renter who pay taxes every month when they pay their rent as well. It is crushing everyone and really affecting our ability to do a lot of the great long-term things that we have talked about and aspire to do and we should do, but we're spending a lot of money every year. I see my time is up and I'm going to pass it. Thank you.
Mr. Sendro.
So I do not support this budget. I think it's too big of a dip into the fund balance, and it's going to impact our bond ratings and reverse progress that's been made in the last few years. It will end up creating more debt in the future and also limiting our liquidity now and in the near future too. I'm also not a fan of the $7 million in undisclosed cuts. That's a tremendous amount. The council's the fiscal authority of the town. I feel like if they're going to cut $7 million, they should have specified what they should be. You know, where is this going to come from? We know it won't come from the Board of Education because they were fully funded. The next biggest piece of the pie is public safety, police, fire, and public works. I'm concerned that this fiscal year goes by, it could impact public safety.
Thank you. Ms. Pius.
Thank you for this question. Hello, everyone. I cut that $18 million with the help of my friends on the council. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is no dipping into the fund balance. I'm going to tell you that when we look through those budget lines, we've worked very, very hard to do so. I know because I combed through 468 lines of the budget for multiple years to find what we saw was an overtaxation. For years on council, folks have tried to get back to actuals by doing an estimation. And for this administration, it has resulted in savings every year. We see, looking at the audits, that it would be $6 million fall down to the fund balance, $7 million fall down to the fund balance, all the way to we would always continuously move $7 or $8 million to the current year's budget. For some reason, this one that was going to turn us on our heads and increase our taxes by $150 a month did not have money moving over from our surplus to our current year budget. Why would we tax people for that money? Why? It makes no sense. That money, we were able to look at all of our lines and see at a certain part of the year, we understand when there is going to be underspending of a line. If you do not hit the spending of that line, what happens to that money? It falls down to the fund balance. Instead of us taxing people for the fall down to the fund balance, we said cut that out of our budget. Cut it out. If every year I'm getting $7, $6, up to $9 million, I know that we are overtaxing. When we fought through these budget deliberations and we found that we were overtaxing for that amount of money, we should be careful, which is why we put $2.5 million into a contingency policy, so that when we have a line in our budget that doesn't quite meet it, that we can pull from that line. Why is there a general line in the budget that says savings expenses? Because we know where the underruns are going to go. We know where the savings are going to come from. It's up to the administration to put together the fact that we see these lines always have an underspending and make that movement in the mayor's seat.
Thank you. Mr. Sear, your response to this question.
Yeah, so I have a lot of problems with the budget that was passed. I think the next mayor is going to be severely challenged right from the jump. And that means figuring out where our fund balance lies, as we were saying, and figuring out what our actuals are. I wouldn't have cut as much from this budget just because I think we don't know where our numbers are, so that could have consequences that we actually don't know about yet. And the mayor is still going around and trying to find those cuts, in case anybody was wondering, so I haven't seen exactly what they are. To rebuild our fund balance, because I think it's low, I would start with restructuring our pension obligation bond. In addition to that, I'd look at selling the Board of Education building. I think those are the two lowest hanging fruit we could do that don't affect the taxpayer, right? But I also proposed my own budget. I think that was important to do at the start of this race. I didn't see that from a lot of the other candidates as well. But the root of this issue is the finance director, right? We do not have a finance director. We haven't had one for a year, and that's why we can't pass an audit. I have statewide connections from my previous roles. I know who I call on day one to get in here and work on these problems, and I think we need young, bright minds on these problems. Thank you.
Ms. Howard.
You know what I endorse? I endorse the 40+ community members tested outside of the legislative council building and demanded accountability to their residents. I endorse the 150+ people at the legislative council meeting demanding accountability. This current legislative council, to include the president, has approved budget where we at community members have been overtaxed for the past 3 years. And the mayor acknowledged that. But the legislative council is the fiscal authority of our town. And the same person now wants to run our town. I can't say anything about the budget because I don't know what it is. We haven't had an audit. We don't know how much money we have. So I will be speaking on something that I don't know about. And that's one thing as mayor that I won't do. I don't know all the answers, and I won't say that I know all the answers. But what I do know that if I had to look for $7 million in cuts, I wouldn't have been giving out raises. No one in my office got a raise this year because we are in dire financial straits. What I have also said that is when I become mayor, if the town so elects me, that I'm cutting my salary by 15%. The same salary that the mayor tried to give raises to, up to 15%. So I can't talk about a budget that I don't know anything about. I look forward to seeing an audit, and hopefully the legislative council, who is our fiscal authority, will give us a budget so we know how much money we have. Thank you.
Our last prepared question is for Mr. Sendroff to start his response, followed up by the 90-second response of the rest of the panel. What qualifications do you possess outside of your political experience that you feel makes you the most qualified person to be Hamden's next mayor?
Okay, in terms of qualifications outside of political experience, I'll exclude my time on the Board of Ed since that was an elected position. I would say one thing that makes me qualified is over 20 years working in the corporate world for a publicly traded company, Taylor & Francis, which is a academic publishing company. And as a publicly traded company, there is a big focus on results and accountability. And I was there for 2 decades, as I said. There I was responsible for multi-million-dollar revenue and spending budgets, and also managed a lot of people. I managed different teams. I was in charge of the Connecticut office. I also managed a team of people in New York City and a team of people in the UK as well. And then I was also a municipal professional for the town, directing the Keith Community Center, which is made up of 3 different town departments, and also managing the relationship with all the different partner agencies there, and managing those town budgets as well, those department budgets as a department head, and also being able to manage in a unionized environment as well, and really know how to navigate through the bureaucracy to get things done. And I'd say lastly, with my experience in the nonprofit world, network with a lot of people, and when you establish partnerships, oftentimes the town could save money. So that's another thing that I could draw upon, is all the relationships in the nonprofit world that I have to. So I think between corporate experience, working for the town, and working with nonprofits, those are the things that would qualify and would help me be mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Bias.
Thank you. I'm going to try to answer those questions by saying my day job, right? So in my day job, I run an organization that has done training. I've been at that organization for a very, very long time. And in there, I've moved up the ranks. I've been a volunteer, an intern, someone who helps to do the program, an OSHA teacher. I've been a grant manager, and I've run the programs in Rochester, Syracuse, Norwalk, New Haven, all around this coast, all the way to being an executive director of this organization. I manage people, I manage students to make sure that they have a career. I change lives through my organization, through my team of people to do the work. What I'm gonna say is that experience outside of government, as well as being a mom and a wife and a daughter, suits me to be able to manage a city as well. Because as much as we try to look at things outside of Hamden and what we've done here, I think it's really hard to ignore that I've been leading this council for so many years, as folks are bringing up. But I do also want to say that our past audits have said that we are actually saving too much in our fund balance. $32 million in our fund balance is too fast of growth. And that's why when we cut the budget down, we prioritize people's home savings over the town's savings without cutting into the fund balance. And I'm also just gonna mention that I did cut the taxes last year by 0.74 mil. That means there was more work to be done because no one noticed it, but I sure did cut the taxes last year by almost $1 million.
Thank you. Mr. Sear.
Did anybody get a tax cut last year? So, in terms of my experience, I think the best thing about me is that I'm not tied to past decision making, and I haven't been affiliated with any of the decisions that got us here. I used to work for Senator Murphy and then later Governor Lamont. I know a lot of people around the state, and I've hired many of the young people that are now working throughout the state too. I want to bring some of those people in, bring new ideas to this situation. In terms of my day job, I worked for a nonprofit that helps towns and municipalities lower their car emissions so I can bring an eco-friendly approach. In terms of my successes in that job, we recently secured NEVI electric highway infrastructure, which is going to bring about $50 million to Connecticut over the next 5 years, and I'm super proud of that. And lastly, my whole background is from sports. When I was young, I was a diver. I got recruited to dive at UC Berkeley. 2014, we were NCAA champions. So I'll bring that discipline and work in everyday approach to this job. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Howard.
Okay, so I won't bring up the fact that I'm the Democratic Register of Voters, making history as Hamden had the highest early voter turnout in the entire state. But we won't talk about that. We'll talk about my 20-year career with the Department of Correction. I started off as a correctional officer. Then I became a correctional treatment officer in a facility for the mentally ill. Then I became a correctional lieutenant at York CI, where I managed hundreds of staff and was responsible for over 1,000 incarcerated women. That is where I got most of my management skills. I retired from the Connecticut Department of Correction as a parole officer in the DUI unit, the only African-American woman to ever work in that unit, and when I retired, they disbanded the unit. I also was a professor of criminal justice and local government. I am a small business owner. And, what else am I? Oh, and I'm a proud veteran of the United States Navy. Thank you. All of that combined has given me the skills needed to run our town. I'll also say this. I hear about people saying, oh, when I get hired, I know the first person that I'll hire. I am the only candidate that doesn't know the first person I'll hire. You know why? Because there will be no nepotism in the Howard campaign and the Howard Mayor's Association, because anyone that wants a job in the town of Hamden will fill out an application. They will submit a resume, and we will be hiring the best person for the job, not our cousin, not our best friend. We're gonna hire what is best because Hamden deserves what's best. I'm asking you all to support Row C. Row C is committed to Hamden. Row C is courageous and willing to stand alone if I have to, if that's what it takes to get what Hamden needs. I am committed to Hamden. Vote Row C for real change in Hamden. Thank you.
Mr. Morton, your response.
Yes, there's two that I'll speak to. The first, like Sean, being a veteran of the United States Army, has taught me a lot about leadership, because for a long time prior to becoming a non-commissioned officer, I was very much a grunt and had to be a follower, if you will. But it taught me the importance of paying attention to detail and doing the little things right, putting your time in, and then eventually becoming a non-commissioned officer. The biggest thing that you do in that role is taking care of other soldiers, making sure they're squared away, making sure they're taking their professional development and advancement serious, and being a peer for them and someone who can help them navigate issues. So my leadership experience from the military, also being in the military, one thing we do obsessively is plan, plan, plan. And this town needs one really good plan, and then be prepared to have a secondary and even a tertiary, and acknowledge that we can sit down and come up with a plan, but there's a lot that we don't know ahead of us, but we can adapt and survive and accommodate that. And the second piece that I think that's very important for the next mayor to have is an ability to go to Hartford and to go to DC and lobby. I did that for the town, I do it in the private sector now. When I'm in those buildings, I see municipal CEOs from all over the state. New Haven, Hartford, Stamford, even Mayor Pete Hess from Naugatuck, for example, a more rural, small town. They are constantly up there advocating and seeking legislation to bring back and help their towns with whatever their issues are. I've been very disappointed by this administration and the complete lack of a presence up in Hartford on issues that actually matter to everyday people. So I'll be spending a lot of my time in Hartford and DC telling our delegations what Hamden expects them to deliver.
Thank you. Thank you. Normally, we would start with the closing, 90-second closing remarks. We got a lot of extremely good questions from the audience. In fact, we snuck one in on you that you all liked that came from the audience. It was very, very well done. But now I'm going to give you all 1 minute, Mr. Timekeeper, 1 minute, okay, to respond to a question given to us from probably the youngest person that's here, or one of the youngest people, who handed a question up to us. She's not of voting age, but she will be eventually, and this is what she's like to know. And I'm going to start at that end of the dais with Mr. Sendroff. Mr. Sendroff, how will you support nature in our town?
Good question.
That is a wonderful question. I really love it. So I've done a lot of things to protect the environment. When I was on the Board of Education, the first thing I did that I really generated was to get rid of styrofoam trays and replace them with biodegradable trays. Also came up with the first energy conservation plan that the Board of Education had. It got very granular, even putting timers on soda machines in the teacher, what's the room? Teacher lounge, yes, thank you, yes. Also, went to alternative energy uses. The middle school, not many people know this, but it's filled with solar panels. We got a fuel cell in the back of the high school, which is another form of alternative energy. It really helped the environment and it saved the town a lot of money.
Thank you. Mr. Morton?
Yes, I think the single biggest thing I could do in my 4 years as mayor to support nature would be to support the great work of the Six Lakes Project to actually get a large 100-acre parcel of land in southern Hamden to a publicly accessible park, right? It would require some work and some remediation and then a little bit of money to be spent to get it in park shape, but I think it's absolutely worthwhile and very important. And we know Northern Hamden has some parks in Brooksville and Sleeping Giant. When we talk about equity and creating opportunities across town, I think that's a huge win for a historically underserved section of town to have something beautiful to be a part of. So I think that's one concrete, impactful thing that I see you do in my first 4 years.
Thank you. Ms. Howard?
Thank you. That is a great question. In my walks into many neighborhoods, I actually encountered a young person who also talked about nature and stated that she wanted to grow trees and plant trees. And could we get a committee together to plant trees? And we can do that, and we can do other things. We can ensure that when we do have builders coming into our communities, that they are also looking at the environment and including that in their plans as well. So yes, I think that's a great question.
Thank you. Mr. Sirr?
In agreement on developers coming in and acknowledging the tree canopy and how much they'd be replacing. In addition, I work to lower emissions in towns, so I think a clean school bus program, actual targets for our emissions are crucial to protecting our environment. But how we protect our green spaces in town, I think it's about more bioswales. So I think about URI and Yale and how they work with the city to build bioswales and trees and have a better tree canopy in town. We should have a similar program to Quinnipiac. I think that would be a great thing to set up. In addition, I'd like better volunteer park commissions to help clean up and take some of the load off of our public works so we could have better parks in town. Better labeling for trash is also better, and develop our urban heat islands as well.
Thank you. Spies.
All right, Grow Hamden is my slogan here for my campaign. And the reason being is because I've always been a proponent of some greenery, some nice earth landscaping here. We have in our possession $600,000 that was endowed to us from a woman passing away specifically to plant trees. Because we already have organizations here in Hamden, the Hamden Alliance for Trees and the Tree Commission, go door to door to ask people if they would like to add a tree to their space. We need to support those groups as they have to change their policies so we can approach renters to also have trees in front of their homes. I already have identified 3 spaces to add parks to Hamden because we already mow them, we already keep them up. We just need to identify them for the people to use because they're public space and public space belongs to the public. That is on top of those private organizations and nonprofits in town that have been doing really great work to create parks in Hamden. That's the Six Lakes community, as well as Eli's Healing Garden, and then also I was a part of hiring our first education staff. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're ready for our 90-second ending final comments from the candidates. We have first, Ms. Baez is going to speak, and then Ms. Howard is on deck. So get your thoughts and organize. Ms. Baez, the floor is yours for 90 seconds.
I'm going to start by saying that as your legislative council president, I have been proud of the work we have done. And that work hasn't been done alone. That work has been done with lots of different council members. There are 18 of us representing on the districts and at large. And that work has been done with heartache and hard work, and legislation has been written, policies have been written, resolutions, and we have made things around housing, light enforcement, tree ordinance, all things to help to improve Hampden. And I need to continue that work in a way that everyone can see and feel. I have seen often in this seat that we, as the authority in town, have no authority if we don't have the right mayor in the seat. That's why I'm telling you, I have the experience. I have the experience to see where we need to go and what needs to happen to get that thing done. I've worked with all these different partners around town, but what needs to happen is we need to have a mayor who we trust to execute those plans. A mayor who's ready to have a welcoming hand towards the other folks in the room and to lead us to get to those solutions. Because that's what I've done in the council. I have amplified voices that might not have been heard. I have pulled us together when we have disagreed. I have prioritized our residents and hearing our residents over everything else. And I'm asking to do that in your mayor's office. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Howard, your comments, and Mr. Sear, you're on deck.
Yes, before I get started with stating why you all should vote for me, I just heard Ms. Baez say that she is good with bringing people together. In the Democratic Town Committee, there are 2 people on the council that didn't vote for her to be our next mayor, to be the endorsed candidate, and they work with her continuously. But we started on why I should be the mayor. My education and practical experience has equipped me to assume the role of Hampden's future mayor. Together with the community's united vision, we have the opportunity to create a lasting impact. Elect a mayor that has a proven track record of creating impactful change. Let's move Hampden forward with the Howard for Hampden team. I'm asking you all to vote row B for the Legislative Council, vote row C for courage, commitment, community, and last but not least, for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sear and Mr. Sendroff, you're going to be next.
So first and foremost, thank you everyone for showing up today, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for hosting and Stephen for being our moderator. I think everyone up here can agree that the town's biggest concern is its taxes. I believe my plan to modernize the plaza, develop the State Street corridor, and make Hampden a more walkable place is the best way to stimulate growth and lower costs. The strip model does not work. We've had empty storefronts since the pandemic, and giant parking lots create urban heat islands and take up unnecessary space. Lower taxes starts with the development. Only about 2% of our buildings were built after 2010. Young people have no place to live, and our older population is in turn being forced out of their homes, many of whom who have been here their whole lives. I'm the person to usher in this new generation in town. I have the energy, the work ethic, and the vision. Now I just need your trust. If you vote for me on September 9th, I promise to move Hampden forward through modernization and equity. I will use every connection I have in the state. I will fill empty staff positions with new talent, and I will do away with political appointees holding town jobs. Thank you again, and please remember to vote September 9th and tell your friends. Nobody votes in the primary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morton. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sendroff. Very sorry.
Thank you. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting and Attorney Tardello for moderating tonight. So whenever I've been given responsibility, I've run with it and met the moment. I've done it in the corporate world, on the Board of Education, at Keefe when COVID hit, and beyond. And I have a record of accomplishment of making a difference in the lives of Hampden residents. My leadership style is based on listening and bringing people together and making things happen. Community building and creating partnerships and coalition has been a hallmark of my career. And as mayor, that's what I'll continue to do. My experience and track record bodes well for future success, and I have walked the walk. Together, we'll tackle the challenges we face together and reach a brighter day. For more information on me and my platform, go to adamforhampden.com. Thank you, and please consider voting for me on September 9th.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Moore. Mr. Turner.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you everyone for being here this evening. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did for being up here, but I hope you also got the opportunity to hear some answers about where I stand on the issues. You know, I ran, as a lot of people may know, but not everyone. I ran 2 years ago because I was passionate about what Hamden and the issues I identified then and continue to be involved even in the past 2 years. I think we need a mayor who's shown a bit of consistency in where they've stood on the record as it relates to decisions about the town and not necessarily showing up and being around the communities just because it's an election year. You know, I'm proud to say that while I gave up my seat on the Board of Ed to run for mayor in 23, and I didn't win obviously because I'm back here talking to you all, but in that time since being out of public office, I was really humbled by how many people in the community from that race or who I had relationships with reached out to me when they had issues in town. They were looking for some kind of advice or some guidance. And, you know, to be seen as a person who at least cares about people's issues or has some ability to help them, I think really is the mark of a leader. And we have a lot of issues as a town, but we need someone who's willing to go in, acknowledge the severity of our fiscal issues, but then work diligently and in a collaborative manner to put together a long-term strategic plan, like what we did when I was on the Board of Ed for a period of time, and set some milestones for our town, and then leverage relationships in a much better fashion in Hartford and DC to help us run this town and offer some relief to residents. So I thank everyone for their time this evening. Congrats to all the candidates. I had fun, thought it was a good, clean debate, and enjoyed myself. Take care, everyone.
Congratulate the candidates. This was an excellent forum. I'm struck by the Hamden's future's bright. You know, these 5 people here, they all did a very good job. Very, very impressive. Good luck to all of you. Remember, we're coming back on the 15th of October at 6:30 for the next debate. Okay? Hope to see you all there. And again, now the applause for these 5 people.